Butterfly rods, butterfly reels, butterfly jig.
Butterfly jig is definitely action, reaction.
Reaction strike.
Put an action to the jig, you get a reaction from the fish every time.
The Butterfly System by Shimano.
The butterfly jig is a very compact jig that's very heavy with very radical edges on it that give it an extreme action underwater. And the jig has a very sharp flutter to it on the way down and a very sharp erratic action on the way up, such that you're always getting reaction bites out of fish. It's not, you know, a hunger bite, or it's not, I think, a normal reaction. It's purely a reaction bite. So you can go to heavily pressured areas, heavily pressured reefs, wrecks, and those things, and still consistently catch fish, because it's not about the fish feeding. It's about some innate, you know, reaction that they have to this lure.
It sinks to the bottom very, very quickly. You know, I mean, literally sometimes in even 200-300 feet of water, we're getting down in 10 seconds, 15 seconds, which is unheard of for most of your vertical jigging. And that just made it, you know, very easy to see a mark, throw this thing over the side, you know, nah, it's not really a good spot. See a mark, throw it over the side, boom, you're on.
Oh my God, look at the size of that red snapper, my 5 feet.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Whoa, doggy. I knew he was coming up different,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Floating up
Floating.
high.
Look at that guy.
Dude, that's awesome.
Look at him. He's pretty.
He is way pretty.
Butterfly jigging tackle systems really fall into 3 categories. We have large, we have medium, and we have small. That sounds pretty basic, but the large jigs and the heavier rods and reels we use in either very deep water or very fast-moving current. The medium size we can use in deep water without a lot of current, or we can use in your more medium depths. And then the small jigs are for shallower water or some of the smaller species. The tackle system really requires 4 main parts. There's the jig with the hook, there's the rod, there's the reel, and there's the line with the leader. Looking at the jig has very specific cuts, very sharp edges, which allow it to move in a very erratic motion that literally cuts through the water. It doesn't glide, it literally cuts on the way up and on the way down. It's different than a conventional jig that has a treble hook in the back, where when you have the fish on, the jig can act like a lever to actually pry the hook out of the fish's mouth. With the butterfly jigs, we rig free-swinging hooks on the very top of the jig. Most fish will actually eat this jig head first. So you'll hook them on these free-swinging hooks, and what happens, which is pretty cool, is that when you look at the pull, if you hook the fish, it's a straight pull with the line and the hook. The jig is just swinging free. By rigging 2 hooks, you increase the odds of hooking the fish twice, increasing the power that you have over the fish and sometimes even the direction. We tie to a welded ring, put the hooks on the welded ring. A split ring allows the jig to not only swing freely, but you can change the jig very quickly for size or color.
What I like about that whole hook system on the butterfly jigs is that your hook is basically attached directly to your line. It goes from the fish to the ring eye, and your line is attached directly to the ring eye. So the lure is basically swinging free and doesn't act as a lever to pull the hook out of the fish's mouth.
That's a king. Beautiful job, Hose. Beautiful job.
Thanks, cuz.
That's awesome. Look at that, he's got both hooks in his mouth. I think that's the only thing that saved us.
the only thing that saved us, dude.
The other part of the whole butterfly system is, you know, it's well beyond the jig, because what's the point of taking this compact jig with all this action and you try to fish it on heavy monofilament or a great big heavy stiff rod and a big slow reel? It doesn't do any good. It's like putting a little bullet in a great big gun. It just doesn't work. So the whole system is a lightweight rod that's easy to hold because you're actually jigging all day with the same motion. Same thing, a compact, lightweight, high-speed reel, so that when you turn the handle, you're moving the jig. And then line with no stretch, so it's the same thing. Action, you apply an action, you get immediate reaction. No stretch in the line. You know, you bring those things together and you've got this lightweight rod, a high-speed reel that's not very big, it fits easily in your hand, and you can catch these giant fish by working this little jig.
Now you have a system where you can hit the bottom like this, you know, clean. You know, if something happens, you see a mark on your recorder, boom, it's in the water, and you're jigging. You know, if you're not sure if they're bottom fish, mid, or surface fish, it doesn't matter because it covers the whole water column. For me, you know, it's an instrumental tool to have in the boat in addition to your other outfits.
rod is critical to the butterfly jigging system. You need a rod with a long rear grip that allows you to put the rod up underneath your arm like this so that you can achieve the jigging motion, which is a very rhythmic up and down motion like this, rather than a real high sticking traditional jigging method. You always want to keep the jig moving, so you're actually moving it with the reel in a very rhythmic way. You can do it either fast or slow, but the jigging motion always stays the same. With the butterfly jig, it's like walking the dog vertically instead of horizontally. And when you're walking the dog with a plug, you've got the same motion. You're working it like this, and you can work it fast, you can work it slow. With the butterfly jig, it's the same thing. It's like this. Straight up and down, the rod's horizontal, high-speed reel. You're really using the reel more than the rod.
Lifting and reeling, lifting and reeling, lifting and reeling. Kind of walking the dog vertically, not horizontally.
So the jig is coming up just like this, and you never drop the head of the jig in the water column. The long rear grip allows you to do that, as opposed to a short rear grip where everything would be too tight to your body, or you'd have it stuck out in front of you. And you can speed it up, you can slow it down, you can change the speed no matter what, but the motion stays the same, always, to get the butterfly jig working right. And again, if you do that and you get in that rhythm, you got to get the rhythm. You get a rhythm going, and it's a lethal technique.
There we go. Get him, bro! Get him, bro! Uh-oh.
Wow. The Trevally jigging rods were something we designed specifically for the butterfly jigging system. They're made out of TC4, which is a lightweight, responsive, but amazingly durable material for building these rods. It's easier on you pulling on big fish. They were designed to be lightweight, but allow you to pull on big fish without hurting.
Big, huge, rainbow runner.
Fishing those lighter outfits makes it infinitely more fun. And you got to be careful, because when you say lighter outfit, you think that it's not going to be stronger, but it's really quite the opposite. I found that given the same size fish, you tend to beat these fish with these rods and these reels in half the time, a lot of times, than it takes normally with other gear.
Oh,
That's a nice one.
That's a big old sucker. And what did that take, honestly? 7 minutes?
Not even, yeah. I wasn't keeping track, but I wouldn't think any more than 5 minutes. The tip action of the rod is very important in the butterfly jigging system. A light tip allows the rod to give into the action of the jig as you're moving it up through the water column. Too stiff a rod, and you move the jig without the proper momentum. Too soft a rod, you don't get enough movement with the jig. But even then, once you hook a fish, these Trevally rods are incredibly powerful, where you can put a great deal of pressure on any fish to pull them away from the wreck or the reef.
With the lighter rods, you know, you're feeling every move of the fish, every foot of line that goes out, you feel, you know, and conversely, those lighter outfits, especially, you know, when you lean back on a fish, you know, you really can tell whether you're moving them or not.
The third component of the butterfly jigging tackle system is the reel. A high-speed reel is vital to this system so that you can have a lot of control over moving the jig and for taking up slack in very, very deep water. Wow! Wow!
Big kingfisher.
The fourth component of the butterfly jigging tackle system is the line and the leader. We use braided line for its strength and ability to cut through the water very quickly so the jig will drop very fast. And then we use a short section of fluorocarbon leader. The connections, we really use two different connections. You can tie a short bimini in the braided line and connect it with an Albright knot, which is a very strong connection, very easy connection to do. The other connection we use is a fluorocarbon wind-on leader. That's fluorocarbon put right into hollow spectra, and we use a simple loop-to-loop connection. There's a loop in the wind-on leader, a loop in the main line, joined with a figure-8 connection. What's nice about this is that there's no exposed knots. It's very, very clean coming in and out of the guides, especially under the high pressure. When you've got a big fish right next to the boat, you can usually wind these through the guides with no resistance at all. That's a king. When you bring the whole system together, the rod, the reel, the line, the jig, it's like one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat with the fish. You can feel everything the fish is doing. No stretch in the line, high-speed reel that's taking up line at every crank, and a rod that's very easy on you that you can just pull with everything that you have.
I think you have a much better fishing experience for that same fish. Instead of catching, you know, a big amberjack or a big kingfish on a heavy rod with a big bait, you know, you're catching them with these little tiny rods, you know, and it makes that whole experience that much more fun.
Fun as it is to fish, the other offshoot is no bait. If you want to go fishing, catch a variety of species with no bait and have a good time, fish the butterfly jig.
You know, I fish, you know, to catch fish when I go out in that boat. And so bait for me is the insurance. So it's hard to break away from that safety element. You know, we're going to try something completely different. We're not going to get bait. We're not going to anchor. We're just going to fish clean all day today.
Well, bud, this is kind of a new thing for me, going out without getting bait. I'm liking it so far.
Just tie on a few jigs and
Find a few jigs and go.
Well, the whole getting bait, anchoring up, you know, picking your spots, spending enough time in a spot to build a chum line behind your boat and see if there's something there is very time consuming. It takes X number of hours, you know, to be in a spot before you can really decide whether it's good or not. You know, something will give you a sign whether to stay there or not. But if there's no fish there, or if you're not seeing what you want to see, boom, you're on to the next one right away.
the greatest things I've found about it is traveling. The rods are short, they break down into a small tube, you take a small bag of jigs, and you can catch all kinds of fish in any location you want to travel. Striped bass in the Northeast, groupers and snappers in the Bahamas, tunas in other places, you name it, all in a tight little package.
With this way of fishing, you know, I could pick any spot. It didn't matter if it was in 300 feet of water or in 80 feet of water. Everything was instantaneous. You could pick your spot, drop, and if it was good, you stayed. If it wasn't good, you went.
Do not be afraid of the butterfly. It will not harm you. It will help you.
We drift over these wrecks, and the butterfly jig started out fishing live bait easily 4 or 5 to 1 on a multitude of species. It's the most lethal type of fishing that I've ever seen. We've really impacted a lot of guides down here that they realize it's an incredible technique on these highly pressured wrecks and reefs. And again, because, at least I believe it's because it's a reaction bite, not necessarily a feeding bite, an actively feeding bite by the fish. And it does require a certain specific technique and a little bit of skill to get it down, but once you do, you can catch fish anywhere. I've caught fish all over the Pacific with it, in Japan with it, down here with it. Pretty much anywhere you want to go, you can catch a lot of great fish with it. And that's what's really fun, is to be able to show people a new and very, very effective technique.
So it gave me the freedom to just go spot to spot to spot to spot. And when you can cover that many spots in a day, a lot of times you end up catching a lot of different varieties of fish.
Oh, it's a Jack Crevalle.
Jack Crevalle.
No way,
Another species.
No wonder.
You put the whole butterfly jigging system together, you're going to catch more variety in more places with a new and exciting way of fishing than you've ever done before. Think about it. A whole new technique, catching all kinds of species.
You know, I found them personally to be one of the better outfits that I have in my boat, just for fishing, period, whether it's bait or the butterfly jig. That's the butterfly jig.
Fishing the butterfly.
The Butterfly System by Shimano.